So thank you very much. Welcome to the final session of the new New Music Festival organized by Arthur. So we're being invited to talk about something that might look in the general musical scene as kind of more technical or esoteric. But as a live coder myself, I would like to see this as a kind of a myth that we're trying to collapse and make it more accessible to the general public. And so to give a brief introduction about what we mean about what is the framework for today's presentations. So we're going to talk about performing with writing code in real time, and that's known as live coding, and most of the times is being exposed through a projection, or other people can follow the process of live programming these applications that create sound or visuals in real time. So the performer is a programmer, musician, and or visual artist at the same time. So this is kind of amalgama as a formation of many skills coming into play for what we mean about a live coder. For the past years, live coding has been in the core of electronic music and visual arts. Of course, our presenters will provide their own contributions and how they use this performance paradigm. But to give just a brief framework, the live coding has been around in electronic music about creating dance music, algorithms, creating using it to communicate with many performers on stage. And of course, to collaborate with other artists on stage, for example, with dancers, with theater. I think someone will talk about that today, etc., etc. So what is live coding? Live coding is, as I said, is hacking code in real time in front of the audience. These algorithms, which the main building block, if it was a house, I would say algorithm would be a block of this house. So the algorithm is a kind of encapsulation of many of some functions. These functions do this, do that. So you can actually, when you're writing algorithms, you're actually saying, giving encapsulated instructions to the computer of what you want to do in terms of how to create the sound or how to create the visuals. So this is why it's called live coding, of course, and this is the performance paradigm, which seems to be, which some people are calling the future of electronic music. I don't know how many times this thing has been into play, like when synthesizers came a couple of years, many years ago, actually, probably people would think the same thing. This is it. And actually they would largely true. But I'm not sure about this, and this is something we should actually kind of have it behind of our minds. Like, is this real future of electronic music? I don't know about that. Still, I haven't found really a clear response about that. What is true, though, is that live coding allows for a vast amount of interactions, whether it's about playing solo or collaborating with other performers or other artists on stage. That is because for many, before live, or not before, but kind of in a parallel with other electronic music performances, you have this paradigm where someone is using a hardware device to communicate with a computer in order to create sound or to manipulate it. But that's fine. But what code is much more flexible into that, we'll see, that it allows you to manipulate the system and actually create the instrument on the fly and actually take decisions according to, in situation, what's going on that right moment of that doing the sound or the visuals. And that's why they call it on the fly sometimes. So without further ado, I would like to invite our first presenter, which is Kerem Altaylar, which will give us an overview of his work about algorithms, which will kind of initiate this idea of algorithms and live coding, which we'll have the opportunity to listen to the other presenters and their personal input. Just to say that we have created, with the presenters, we have created a website, which you can see the presentations afterwards, and kind of for archival reasons, or you want to reference it, or just to see again what these people were talking about in much more detail. We'll share the link, I guess, at the end at the Q&A session. So thank you very much. Thanks very much, Arthur, for inviting me, and I hope you enjoy it. So, Kerem.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say that Konstantinos has started with the notion of live coding. My project is like, and my work is between a live coded version and a closed system version. I'm just developing it just to remind from the start. I wanted to remind it from the start. Basically, I prepared this presentation. Let me share it with two parts. One part is the introduction of the project, and second part, I imagined that 3 years ago when I started my interest in audio programming started, what would I expect from here? What I want to hear when I was at the beginning. So, and the second part is like answers to that. What can provide coding and programming to music? Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Yeah. So my project actually is an algorithmic structure. Its name is Conductor, and I'm happily saying this that I'm also developing this project under the Arter's research program as well. So thank you for that. Conductor is basically a closed multi-agent system. A multi-agent system is meaning that every agent is every code, every function in an algorithm is responsible for some kind of parameters like dimensions, frequency ratios, rhythms, timbre, randomness, one of the most important ones for my project, and time. So it is an algorithmic structure on top of these parameters. The algorithms control these parameters as well as I intended and as well as I programmed them to function. I want to remind again, there is no machine learning or neural network additions to this project. None of them is included. These are just algorithms functioning together. So basically what it does, this view is not clear, but this view, I guess, will be more efficient to understand what is a multi-agent system. This is actually a logic map of the order of execution and the code structure. It starts with the random generators, and there are some things that I focused on. For example, tuning and temperament function, because most of the time when we are using traditional or classical digital workstations or virtual instrument designs that have predetermined mechanisms of musical concepts. So first of all, live coding and coding with in the context of music enables you to create your own mechanisms and your own aesthetic choices, not predetermined by another developer. So yeah, here a tuning and temperament function chooses respective one. Then after that, intervals, the frequency distance between the notes are calculated and stored as scales, chords, progressions, or even I'm right now working on it like melodies, leading melodies, because you will hear that the notion of leading melody lacks somehow in this version of my project. So here you can see other agents are controlling note length, notes, and giving values and semantic values to the notes, note length here. So here is spatial settings function. This function works with basically it's a complex reverb that establishes the building's acoustics and changes it with algorithmic support, and this can go really imaginative landscapes. It's like when I said imaginative landscape, so John Cage came to my mind, so I laughed. Sorry, but I wanted to use like really imaginative landscapes. So yeah, let me go back to presentation. So here I can design my own electronic instruments as well, their timbres and envelopes. Here is the thing that this agent consists of other agents that imitates voices in a composition. For example, like the sections, which are playing different partitions on the score or on an improvisation in the both cases. So they can be as much as I want and as much as I program. So this is, for example, the quantity of their the number of partitions are really enhanced with computer aid. So you can have 1,000 as well. You can have one as well. So you can change it really quickly, as Konstantinos mentioned, that some kind of computers processors are, I guess, very efficient, like 10 billion calculations at a second on a regular computer performance. So yeah, this is the basic idea of a multi-agent system. But let me talk about this because actually our title is like a live coding situation. I will show some of one recording of myself. I recorded myself playing the conductor, so maybe there can be connection problems. So I will show. Right now it is like open to live access because I choose the input frequency of the scale and tonal system in the memory of the data banks of the algorithm, and I choose the time. It will it be slow, fast, or like an exponential rise, I don't know, or a linear rise kind of stuff. And I added recently the temperament systems, for example. This is, mostly we are using 12 equally tempered tuning system in our workstations as well as the music outside, but some kind of older and some kind of more authentical, non-compressed, I would say, and related to pure intervals. Some of them are related to pure intervals. These are, different temperament systems. So I coded them as well. You can choose temperament scale, and I choose that as well at the beginning. So yeah, but my aim is, in the project, I want to turn it into a closed system that I will, in that case, I will not choose, but I will connect them to constrained random generators, and they will choose as well. But at the sake of this, presentation, I will be controlling those parameters. So actually, the closed system idea is, like there's a term called musical meta creation. Actually, this term is, under the scope of the academia in Canada and in, England as well as Germany. This concept is actually pretty popular right now. So yeah, actually this you will see. I will open the video, and I cannot go by all of these stuff, but we put a website after for accessing the presentations after the presentation. So here are some concepts that help music production, composition, performance, and I think listening as well. The awareness of these concepts while you are listening computer music, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, I went over all of the stuff. So let me reshare my screen with the video. I will stop the video and continue, stop, continue, if I wanted to say something about it. Share computer sound, share. Yeah. Actually, the one that I opened is the random generators. Reverb. I'm right now. There is no sound, by the way. It will start after like 20 seconds. I prepared the reverb for my intent. The 200 is the tempo. That is equal temperament, minor harmonic scale, and the main frequency of the scale. These are all coded by me, by the way. They are not pre-made stuff. So it will start. I will mute myself for a minute. Until now, I just activated every voice that I talked about. Just 3 of them. Right now, I will open all of them. Here, for example, this algorithmic system is built upon the analytical representations of the nodes, pure mathematical. So I don't use, like, for example, a fifth, but I know that in equal temperament, a fifth is like 1.498 times of the root frequency. So I modulated whole system with just one calculation. So yeah, let me rewind to demonstrate long reverbs and other kinds of sounds and shapes. So yeah, it is a quick demonstration. I have a YouTube site that from the start of the project, I recorded the videos of it and I'm showing the development of it. And I will continue to write, more and more and more and more, and it will be more complex. Yeah, so anything else I wanted to add? Let me check. Yeah, so that's what I prepared. Thank you. And if you have any questions, we will have a question and answer section after the presentation. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kerem. I think the last part where you checked your notes, I think it kind of it was a nice implementation of the on the fly idea, which is this all about live coding. I like that. So thank you very much. Excellent. So we will move now with Selçuk Artut, our next presenter. So please, Selçuk.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay, cool. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday evening, and thank you all for inviting us to your residencies in this COVID situation. And hopefully you had a wonderful weekend, pretending as if you are going to do the shopping with your nylon bags on the street and trying to be safe mentally. Anyway, I have a presentation too. Let me also share it to you as well. Share computer sound. Yes. Hang on. I think we're good to go. Can you see my presentation or?
Yeah, I think it's okay, but it's a little bit small.
I see. I think because it should be like this. Now is it big?
Mm-hmm. Now it's perfect.
All right, because I have two screens, that's why. Anyway, so I have a few hats, but for the purposes of this presentation, for a little of introduction, my name is Selçuk Artut. I'm an assistant professor teaching at Sabancı University, teaching courses on sound and interaction. Today, I'll try to grasp three different subjects very quickly and shortly. The first is RAW, my music project that I'm involved in with my music partner, Algoritma. And second, I'd like to touch upon the community behind the scene, the Algoritma Istanbul team. And the last is one of my latest projects that I have done, Dumrul and the Grim Reaper. In Turkish, people might also recall Dumrul Azrail, which is a theater play. I'll present you some slides about that too. So my story begins with the ICI Istanbul, which was in 2011. and I was the vice chair of the symposium, and we invited several scholars from all over the world. And there were a few scholars which were brought to my attention because they were more into dealing with sound. And I was introduced with the topic of live coding first in 2011. We organized an evening where some scholars were performing live on stage. And I remember names like Tormaktuson typing into a blank sheet, and that was making sounds. That was amazing for me. That was my cup of coffee. And then in 2015, me and Altuan, as I said, the other partner in the RAW project, we were visiting this Resonate Festival in Belgrade, which is an electronic arts festival in 2015. And we turned to ourselves, each other, and said, "Are we stupid or not? What we should do this live coding thing?" Because we saw Alex McLean doing a presentation, and we both are musicians in the past and have been involved in creative coding, and we were doing some basic things, complex things, either in Max MSP, trying to do interactive stuff. But then this idea of facing with a tabula rasa, a blank sheet, and typing things and making them to sound was a brilliant idea. Not only that it was cool, there was another sense of creativity behind it. And the first incident that we performed was part of this event called Monochrome Exhibition, created by Ceren and Irmak Arkman, where I was, as myself, Selçuk Artut, was an invited artist to present an artwork. But the curators also have asked me whether I should be interested in doing something accompanying the exhibition. And I said to myself, I should now try this. And then we grouped together with Alp and performed the first time we might have the date. Yes, that's here, 9th of February 2016, we performed our first concert at Akbank Sanat. And then there was a huge interest. Later on, we also performed, we as RAW performed in many different places in several events. But the first Algoritma incident, the organization that we performed for in Turkey, as far as I know, please correct me if that's not true, was this part of this event at Salt Beyoğlu, Long Thursday, November 2018, organized by Atay İlgün and Caner Bozkurt. So as far as I remember, we were Raw, Tuba, Sedin, and Konstantinos, the three of us. We performed there first time, as all the members of the night were live coders, hence the party was called the Algoritma. And this is a session from our performance in Salt Beyoğlu live coding. As you might have realized, we're not only making sound, but we are also busy dealing with creating images. And I'm not going to go into too much technical details, but everything that you are seeing there has been created by us, not using any third-party software, just the software programming environments. So what you're seeing as visually is programmed in C++ with a framework called Open Frameworks. And the music was developed with several means. And we also, I mean, share the screen. Both of us are doing sound, and we are also playing with the images. The images are not programmed live. They were pre-programmed by, they are sound interactive, but we choose between the scenes, and we also even show our hands typing from a top camera. So completely, the kitchen is there for the participants to observe. And then we made several events. This was in 2019, and the community was developing. And not only me, also Alp is teaching a scholar at another university, and it kind of like disseminated all over to the students and who are following us. And then there was an awakening. Technical University, us, at that time I would name Sabancı University and Alp on the Özyeğin University. We started teaching courses on live coding. And it was just an ignite. I mean, yes, university is a place where you teach things, but it's more of a place where you facilitate things. So that was an awakening for so many people who wanted to be creative in other means rather than being DJing or using any synthesizers or whatever. So the community was developing. So this is another Algoritma event, which was part of this festival we did in 2019, Dystopia, and I will mention a few more about the Dystopia festival in the near slides. So we are not free. Now we are 6 and even getting more and more. People are joining us. And then we with all the interest that is being developing towards this live coding, so the community was born. So Algoritma Istanbul community was born, and then it's an Istanbul-based live coding community with several people being in contact through different means, either through Discord channels or forums, and trying to share ideas and also feel this vibe of the community. So, I mean, it consists of musicians, not only musicians, visual artists, researchers, technology enthusiasts, and people interested in creative coding. And it aims to apply and spread the live coding applications on creative works. So for those from the audience who are interested, I also would like to point your attention to this address. There's a Bandcamp website for the Algoritma community, and there have been 3 releases in the past. So the releases are named iteration, or perhaps for the short cut. Iter 1, Iter 2, and Iter 3. You can listen on this Bandcamp address, and they are all composed and recorded by the artists who are part of this community. And we also would like to welcome you all happily as well. And the last, the project that I would like to mention you is this Dumrul and the Grim Reaper project that I was involved in. I've been into the theater business and let's say arts for a long time. When Garage Istanbul was established, I was doing a lot of things with the basic T, making music either or making visuals in this sense or that sense, using Macs, trying to attach sensors on dancers and all these things. And it's been a while, like over many years. I haven't done much, but then the basic team, the Garage Istanbul, is not existing anymore. But the 2 people, the 2 heads, Övül Avkıran and Mustafa Avkıran, they came to me and said, we would like to do this play again after 20 years, Dumrul and the Grim Reaper, which is a story by Murat Anmunga. And when I am in the team, I am kind of like hybrid in terms of like the production. I even performed as a theater actor on stage. So I like the interdisciplinary approach of this team, and we try to discuss about how to produce this new version of the theater play. But before going into like further details, I'd like to also address another terminology in here, which is the music theater. So Dumbulan and the Grim Reaper, when we were working on the project, our main emphasis was to concentrate ourselves into this theme, the music theater. It's not musical theater. It's not musical. It's not theater at all. It's not opera at all. So it's a different approach. So before puzzling you more, I'd like to read this definition to you. Music theater projects are often composer-led. This is an important word to underline. With the composer deciding main elements of the text, staging and design, which would usually be determined by a librettist, director, or designer. So as you have seen, the team, 5 people on stage, and me as the main performing actors, we elaborated and collaborated together to produce this piece together. 2 people on stage, even I would count Mustafa Akran into and add more and say 3 of them are performing musicians, and one of them is a theater actor, the other one's a theater actor too, but also a dancer. So it's an interdisciplinary team where we think tanked together to create this piece. And of course, music theater is not something new. I mean, it comes from when you go to the roots of it, the Arnold Schoenberg, Igor Stravinsky, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen could be the 20th century contemporary composers who opened the door, and then followed by names like John Cage, Georg Ligeti, Philip Glass, Mauricio Kagel could also be counted. But the more recent ones could be these 3, my heroes: Georges Apergis, Heiner Goebbels, and Robert Lepage. I mean, they use the advancements of the today's technology and incorporate it into performance. And they try to necessitate moving away from the seeing of an eye-mind relation to the theater. Both of them heavily involved in the music. They try to bring our attention not only to the literature or the eyewitnessing, but also filling the environment with the touch of a sound. And so, which comes along with a lot of duties to handle, because I mean, this photo is from a rehearsal we were doing before we came up with the whole idea. So I was dealing with so many things. The actors were using microphones. On real time, I was doing sound technician work and trying to manipulate their voices live. At the same time, trying to do the sound design, trying to compose the music, even do the production, talk about the text, try to get the feeling of the scene and this and that, so many things to handle. So my role, my responsibilities, I mean, they were, as I listed, they happened to be during the production stage, but which continued later on. While on stage, I was a performer, not physically on stage, but right next to. My duties were handling with the sound design and sound effects, music composition, sound engineering, and even doing live music. And I was going on stage, next to stage, and playing bass for a minute. So it was quite complicated to name, and we have decided to say I'll be the sound performer. But I decided to use live coding for a theater play, and there are so many advantages along with it, because I don't know if from the audience who have an experience in accompanying a theater, or I think the theater will be the sole action of it. Following a text and trying to make music is quite cumbersome. It's very hard to concentrate, because you have to follow the text from either another page or another screen. Also, you have to go through another screen if your musical instrument is a laptop. But live coding was such a nice remedy, I realized. So here's my working environment. I even built a theme so that I can incorporate the text and my live coding together. So I was able to follow the text actors, and there were moments where I needed to trigger the sounds, so I could be the sound designer. There were moments where I should trigger the sounds to make music, which I was composing. And there were even moments where I took notes. I should keep them in mind so that I should do my sound technician job. So I prepared a video for you to follow my action on stage. So we performed this, by the way, for the Istanbul Cultural Foundation Festival's Theater Festival in November 2020, just only for 2 acts, unfortunately, because of the COVID situation. So this is a recording from our second performance, I guess, in Zorlu Performing Hall. And unfortunately, this is in Turkish. For those who have a difficulty in following, please, I apologize for that, but please try to follow what's happening. The code I'm writing is not any rocket science at all, but I think you should also concentrate on the idea behind amalgamation of how I marry text and music together to accomplish such a difficult job, and made it more simpler. Oh no, the next slide, sorry. Here it comes.
Dünya kendi dalgınlığında, ayaklarımızın altında ağır ağır sönüyor. Yeniden tepe. Gözleri boşalmıştı. Yalnızca ölüm korkusu ya da ölümün belirsizliğine, ölümden sonrasına duyulan korkunun belirsizliğine duyulan ürküntü değildi bu. Hala dünyaya ait korkularla ölüyordu. Kendine acıyordu. Kendini böyle görmeye tahammül edemiyordu. Kendi gözünde azalmıştı. Dünya da azalmıştı bundan böyle kendisi için. Dünya, bundan böyle onun tanımadığı bir dünyaydı artık. Güçlü ve kararlı görünmek istiyor. Elleriyle bana öldüreceğim yeri gösterir diye bir göğsünü açıp korkusuz olmaya çalışan gözlerle bakıyor. Artık gözlerini kaçırmıyor benden. Apaçık ve hilesiz bakışıyoruz. Neredeyse meydan okur gibi. Erkekliğinin son kalesini korur gibi bakıyor. Şimdi tek istediği bunun bir an önce olup bitmesi, bu dünya işkencesinin daha fazla sürmemesi, bunu anlıyorum. Gün bitiyor. Akşama kadardı yazgının yolu. 3 kapı bitti. Gidecek bir kapısı daha olmadığını biliyor. Sonunda bana, ölüme teslim olmuştu. Ve şu anda koca dünyada tek yardım umamayacağı kişi bendim. Yani en yakınındaki kişi. Birdenbire bu durum bana gülünç geldi. Elimde olmaksızın gülümsedim. Yırtılır gibi gülümsedim. Sanki kendimden gizlediğim bir şey bu gülümsemeyle yüzümü yırtarak açığa çıkmıştı. Nedense onu öldüremeyeceğimi biliyordum. Aslında bunu ne zamandır bildiğimi fark ettim. Bunu kendime söyleyebilmem için benim gibi, onun gibi benim de kıstırılmış olmam gerekiyormuş meğer. O öleceğini, ben öldüreceğini zannediyordum.
So it goes on and on. It's quite a long
Dünya
theater
kendi dalgın
performance. So this is me trying to solve so many things. I wish I had more hands, and so that, I mean, I was busy with the mixer. I was busy with the microphones. I was busy with my screen, following the text and trying to do the sound effects. I told you, like, everything. It was quite a difficult task to handle. Last but not least, I would like to take this opportunity to also make an announcement. I've been heavily involved in this for the last few weeks. The Dystopia, as I named before, festival is happening this year with a good fortune. So we have been hosted by Akbank Sanat, which is starting next week, 9th of March. And we will be exhibiting 15 different sound artists' works there. Also, there will be some side events. Keep in touch and follow us. Thank you for your patience. If you'd like to address questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation, Selçuk. It's very interesting to see how live coding finds applications to other artistic paradigms, and it's not a prerogative only of electronic music or specific kind of music or digital art. At this point, I would like to invite Uğur Can. Thank you very much, and please, Uğur Can, with the final session of our presentations.
Okay. Hello all, my name is Uğur Can. I am a PhD candidate in Istanbul Technical University, Advanced Studies in Music, Center for Advanced Studies in Music. And right now I am a research assistant in Technical University Dresden, Germany. So I'm really happy to be able to be a part of this conversation. And I would like to continue iterating over Dr. Artut's presentation. And in this manner, I would like to talk about network live coding ensembles. So I'll share my presentation, but if Selçuk can close his share screen, yeah. Let me take this to the other monitor. So yeah. And also, okay. So I would like to talk about network live coding, as I mentioned. So it would be best to briefly define what is laptop orchestra first. Some of you who attended the first presentation of today might know about what is laptop orchestra, but I will give it a little brief explanation anyways. So it's essentially a music ensemble. Laptop orchestra is essentially as a music ensemble, and that primarily uses computers and computer-generated sounds as instruments. So as any other ensemble, performers play together to create music, and each member of the ensemble adds specific texture that will go with the musical piece that is being performed there. So created music can also be improvisation that way. Laptop orchestras uses controllers, interfaces, and instruments to control their created music inside their laptops. And also there are custom-built instruments and speakers as well. And there are a few laptops orchestras worth to check out. So Stanford, Princeton, and Birmingham Laptop Orchestra, and Huddersfield Experimental Laptop Orchestra, along with Istanbul Bilgi University Laptop Orchestra. This brings us to Live Coding Ensemble. Essentially, Live Coding Ensemble is a laptop orchestra that uses on-the-fly audio programming techniques to create music. And this is also can be called just-in-time programming. This is a dynamic programming where a performer is implementing the synthesis or the sound that will be played by the computer in real time and dynamically changes it depending on the piece, depending on what is being played at that stage. So there are few programming languages such as SuperCollider, Chuck, Sonify, and Xlang, and Lua. And there are also few visual programming languages like MaxMSP and Pure Data. This is not directly a low-level programming per se, but it is anyway implemented in real time, and it can be called live patching. Now let's talk about network live coding. So in traditional acoustic instrument ensemble, performers communicate through visual auditory cues. And this could be notation or the conductor, or this could be the sounds they hear from that piece, and they could play their part depending on that. And in a network live coding performance, this communication can be done through an ad hoc wireless network. So with this communication plane, performers are able to communicate, control another laptop to play sounds. Performers can see what other performers are playing and see their code snippets, as well as data can be distributed through this network. And another great thing about this interconnection between performers is that the space boundary of the stage is no longer an issue. Performers can scatter around the concert space and even play sitting near the audience. So now I would like to play a short clip, and this is from PowerBooks Unplugged from UDK Berlin. And as you can see, they are sitting with the audience and performing their space. So this introduces a different sound spectra, which means every audience is experiencing this sound, this music differently from their perspective. Performers here are using their own laptop speakers. So it is a distributed sound. Another example I can talk about is the live coding concert by PowerBooks Unplugged and Istanbul Coding Ensemble, which I am also part of. And the name of the concert was PowerBooks Unplugged meets Ice. So in this live coding concert, members of both coding ensemble are connected via network, where they can route their codes to be run in another player's laptop. And here's a simple diagram to show what I mean. And in here, performer can define synthesized sounds. Let me show it. Like a performer can define their own synthesis definition and send it through a network server. And from this network server, they can either play these sounds from their own laptop, or they can send this sound to another performer's laptop and play it there. And they can add specific order of playing. For instance, they can hop one performer and hop to the another, or they can play their sounds from all the computers at the same time. Now I would like to mention a project of mine with the collaboration of Istanbul Coding Ensemble again. And in this project, we recorded real-time brainwaves and distributed this data through the network. And each ensemble player can then actively reach to this data and use it in their own sonification and synthesis algorithms. And the information exchange was made with open sound control packages that sense this brainwave data, brainwave recordings, and it sends these recordings to Super Collider. And we use the Utopia network library inside the Super Collider, which helped us to send and receive brainwave data between performers, and also allowed us to communicate at the same time. So briefly, brainwave data is a representation of neural activity of the brain, and these reactions are recorded with a device called electroencephalogram, short for EEG. And this data can inherit how human mind reacts to certain effects around us. This effect can be auditory, this effect can be haptic, or this could be even a social interaction, just like in a performance where performers are connecting with each other. This introduces a certain reaction from brainwave. And this data also can give us mental states of the person who wears the EEG device. This is the EEG device we use in our project. And one performer wears this device, and their neural reactions are recorded and sent to the other performers as strings of microvolt values, because these sensors are reading the microvolt values that are happening on the scalp of the human head. And neural activity introduces these spikes, and these big spikes are meaning that the person is blinking, actually. This also can be introduced by muscle movements. If a person moves around, and you'll get a big spikes of data. And also we used calculated neural oscillations, which are showing roughly if person is in meditative state or relaxed or focused. So the brainwave frequency between a specific window, such as alpha, between 8 and 12 hertz, this frequency modulation of brainwave could show us if person is relaxed at that moment, or 12 between 38 would show us that if a person has a high attention or focusing on a particular job they are doing at that stage. So we also use this information to map our synthesis definitions in live coding situation. So recorded brainwave values are recorded to the master computer, sent to the master computer from the Open BCI, which is the device we use, and it is sent to master, and master sends these brainwave data to the performers, and then performers uses their own implementations and create a musical texture which then improvised over and over again. And this also introduced a biofeedback mechanism. What I mean by biofeedback mechanism is that a person would be sending brainwave data to the performers, and performers would create music and send this to the speakers, and speakers would count as an interaction with the performer's brain again, which creates this interesting biofeedback mechanism. And this is really interesting to use in live coding situation. So now I would like to show you a small demo of what kind of interaction we can get from EEG data. And this is the demo test I made myself before taking this to the performers. And this is for creating scenarios where performers can use, can get an idea how to use brainwave data in their synthesis definitions or sonification algorithms. So in the upper left side, this is the OpenBCI GUI, which records the EEG data and then also calculates the neural oscillations I mentioned earlier, and sends this data to OSC package to the super collider. And in the left side, in my console, for this demo, I focused on the focus attention value of the EEG data, the neural oscillation of attention value. So there are two ways to do this. You can either use beta values directly as attention value, or you can divide beta value with alpha, which alpha shows the relaxation of a person. And this relaxation, if this relaxation is low, then we would get high focus with this implementation. So the left side, you will see that in that console, the focus value of the performer, which is me. And I try to map this data to synthesis parameters, such as the detune. I guess in this demo, I was particularly focused on detune and dynamics of the sounds. And of course, I mentioned that this data can be influenced really easily. And if I move around, you will see that there will be big spikes here and here. And these big spikes really affects the sound that is being played at that time. And this is really interesting to me also. And this would show that how dynamic a brainwave can get in a live coding situation. So I'll start. This is all I can talk about. Thank you for listening.
Well, we are just right on time for the amount of time that we were offered for this session. So I think that says a lot about people who know how to use just-in-time programming techniques. So not only in computer science, but also in real life. So I would like to open now the discussion to kind of a Q&A stage where I will invite some of, I don't know how much time, I guess we are the final session, so I guess we are kind of flexible. We can talk for live coding until tomorrow morning.
No worries, I'm getting the coffee.
Yeah. I just want to say that it's a very honorable position for me to kind of conclusive remarks for what I've heard so far, which I knew most of it. It's a very honorable position for me to be in a moment where I came here 3 years ago and I inspired the young generation by my teachings in live coding in a MEAM Sonic Arts program, and I can see that we have 2 students presenting there about live coding and also other students that are not here right now, like Emreus Turk, that I feel I should mention him because he's also one of the significant contributors in the Algoritma community of Istanbul, which me and Selçuk, as he mentioned, we kind of kicked in, and kind of all these spring chickens came out of this spark of using coding as a performance strategy. So without me being very talkative, you can stop me anytime, I can be very talkative. But I a couple of questions, which, and of course I would like again to thank Arthur for having a sharp eye to the contemporary and cutting edge practices of music. And that's something that is very important for places such as Arthur, which is kind of not only giving the stage to this kind of not that much pop or mainstream performance music techniques, but also to give the stage to the newcomers like Uğur Can and Kerem, and probably in the future others, and to give them the stage to talk about their work and being able, these people, students or other artists, to present their work to the people. So we have 3 questions so far, which is a good score for a giggy thing like live coding. And there's a, I would like only to respond to the first one, and of course everybody can respond to that, but because I think I should mention, it's the question says, we have seen the applications of live coding in musical events and theater performances. What do you think the future will bring to its various applications / practices and interdisciplinary fields or acoustic collaborations? So I think I can contribute to this question. And as Uğur Can mentioned, we have this home live coding ensemble in MEAM, which was founded in 2000. When was it, Uğur Can? Do you know? Do you remember? It's been a while.
2019.
2019, yeah. So one of the first attempts to perform as the ensemble, the herald performance, if you like, of the ensemble, was again in Arthur, but when Arthur was in Istiklal. And there we collaborated with an acoustic performer. That was a collaboration between a live coding ensemble and an acoustic performer, which is Amy Salzgiver, from another professor from MEAM. And she's performing with melodic percussion instruments. And at that time, she kind of fed with audio signals what she was playing in her instrument. I think it was not a marimba, but yeah. So we were feeding all the performers with audio signals and kind of analyzing, and this data, some kind of sonification, if you like. We were creating on-the-fly sonifications and control, using it as a control signal, what she was playing with her instrument. So yes, we're pretty much into that. I have also to say that some of the works of the ensembles and the works that we've been with Uğur Can as an ensemble is that it's not only about performing and entertaining, it's about also kind of bending of what you can do with this performance paradigm, which is more research maybe, but also at the same time, we're trying to be making meaningful music. So yes, actually, to put it simply, yes, it's very much the case where acoustic instruments come into play. Yes, Selçuk.
I can add a few more words on this. Well, indeed, when you use a laptop, it doesn't have to be a laptop too. When you use a computer for means of like being creative, then it becomes a musical instrument in itself. A piano would have 88 keys, but a laptop would have 105 keys. So, but still it becomes a musical performance tool where you can do things on the fly. A little different than playing a guitar though, but when you play a string, you're sure about how it will sound like. But with some manipulators like pedals and things, it can also come with surprises. But the nice thing about live coding is this marriage between you and the computer system trying to create a dialectic relationship together. And this can also melt into other acoustical instruments very easily and neatly. A couple of years ago, the RAW project, we were having a small tour in Japan, and we were playing in Tokyo, and there was another band of musicians, and they did their gig, we have done, and then we have decided to improvise together. And we were live coding with three throat singers on stage. It was amazing. I mean, it's very hard to express this, which is a missing experience at this moment, and we're too far from explaining it. Looking at our squared distances, there's a cosmic relation because everything's happening on the air. There is nothing pre-composed; it's just happening. So it's very open to acoustical interdisciplinary approaches. And as Konstantinos was explaining, we had some similar experiences in the past too, because it becomes an instrument of some sort.
So the next question I can move on is...
Kerem is raising a hand too.
Okay, sorry, Kerem.
I wanted to say a little. So actually, with the collaborations or with acoustic instruments, besides the collaborations and interdisciplinary approaches, also this kind of manipulation of sound or something you created as an output will affect the aesthetic choices of the listeners, or maybe create new aesthetic choices, because when you acoustically perform something, there is some kind of process in your brain or in your while you're composing, performing, listening, and this is actually perfectly symmetrical relation that with your intention. There is a gap between, for example, when you perform something, that we are okay with the seconds scale, but when you go milliseconds, for example, there is a lack of precision there, and this is an important thing for aesthetics of this kind of manipulation. So I wanted to add this. We can open that kind of discourse as well.
So we can move to the second question, and the question is, how would you describe the presence of improvisation and or preparation in the process? On your own practices, how often do you improvise or write the notation beforehand? By the notation, I speculate that is the source code of the performance, I guess, kind of boiler pretext. So who wants to respond first? Uğur Can, you unmuted, so I guess that's a sign of...
Yeah. I really like to see pre-written code or a boiler code to be as notation. So the live coding is also showing the notation to the audience there. So this pre-presentation of the code they are working on, dynamically changing, is also a part of the improvisation part. So they can also define these sounds they are making with these synthesis steps, or the thing they are making with these sequencers on live. They can define them on live and play with it. But also having these prepared beforehand is like having prepared an instrument beforehand for the concert, and showing what they can do with this instrument and change it on the fly. This is and this has been shown to the audience as well. So this is the pure intention of live coding, and showing what performer is doing at the stage at that moment.
Yes, Selçuk.
Yeah, I treat the experience of performing on stage while live coding is mostly like a jazz improvisation, where there's a certain build of blocks of ideas there, but there are times where you dive into unknown roads and without ever having any intention at all. So I like that beauty, that experimental dimension of the live coding situation. And also it relies on the environment as well. So when you are into a group of people, like in the Algoritma situation, it's okay if you start very slow and then build things slowly and slowly. But we even have performed in like rave festivals and venues. It's very hard to convince people that things are happening slowly and step by step. So when we first were performing, even people thought what we are presenting is just visuals. It has nothing to do with the sound at all. But today there's a nice interest towards the community. And even that's another experience that we have gone through. There are moments when we are on stage as raw and we face each other and say, let's crash. So we try everything to crash the computers. It's a bit like breaking a guitar on stage. So so the audience welcomes this with their crazy movements, like responses and reactions. It all depends on the vibe of the scene. There are moments where you should be very careful about building your structure. There are moments where you can go insane. That's the beauty of performing live, I think.
That reminds me, well, I think we were at the same event that Selçuk is in somewhere in Kadıköy in a bar. I'm not going to do name dropping about the local scene bars, etc. But I think it was a small place, anyways. But so I was playing for 20 minutes, and right in 20 minutes, that was the amount of time I was given for everyone, also. And right on 20 minutes, I crushed. And then people were like, "Oh, you crushed!" But you know, I didn't care that much, because to be honest with you, I couldn't think a better ending for my set. So technology kicked in the right moment. But about improvisation, talk about a little bit, because as I said, I've been researching about improvisation, live coding. Live coding is a par excellence improvisation technique. It means that you designing the code that actually will be the boiler code, as we say. The boiler code means that something that the people are, it's not necessary that the people have to see being developed. And that also depends on what kind of tools are you using. For example, in Super Collider, like Kerem mentioned, is a much more lower level language, programming language. So you don't have this nice interface like languages like Ixlang, that Selçuk mentioned about Thor Magnusson that he designed, and or Tidal, which I'm also using for algorithm music. So it's much more lower level. So it means basically you need to create some things that will be the resources for your audio making. For example, buses, or to load the sound, to write exactly the code that you have to create that you will use for your performances, and all these kind of nuances of the code is not necessarily adding anything to the music, although they have to be there. So and the but these, I was trying to say, I was getting where I'm getting with that. This is kind of the building blocks of your performance. Whatever you build before the performance, which is very important, it doesn't necessarily mean that will kind of limit you to a specific thing, but instead it will just give you the springboard to create on top of them. But I think improvisation versus how much you prepare before the performance is a kind of a question that still I don't have a clear answer about that. It's a debate. It also depends on the needs of the performance, and also is about kind of create after that and during the performance, because code is approached by lots of people like an interface. As I said, the interface to kind of manipulate your sound or using sensor-based things. It's kind of you building a dialogue with it. And I think David Ogborn, another scholar of live coding and colleague and friend, he mentioned that live coding is kind of the process of bricolage, like from Levi Strauss, a philosopher, the bricolage idea, where you're kind of taking something that already exists and you're changing the structure and creating always something new. So this kind of creating a new instruction in your computer and then seeing how that responds in terms of sound, then this makes you to take the next decision. So it's kind of a dialogue between how the code, the algorithm responds to how you're hacking it or you're modifying on the fly. And it's pretty unpredictable. And this is why you cannot play twice the same piece that you designed for a performance. But that's the interesting part. Yes, Kerem.
Maybe I can say something about like the preparation part, because the project that I want to continue developing is a closed system, and the thing that I'm doing while developing it, translating the musical the information in music theory into the realm of coding, the language of what IDE I'm using there. Because it is, I guess, important to mention that, as you said, Konstantinos, there are some kind of, for example, IDs like tidal cycles with higher level, but like super collider lower. For example, when you want to use major scale in some kind of IDE, that major scale is already fixed into some frequency, and you use as a MIDI data or another data you derive it from the MIDI. But for example, when I create this kind of stuff, I just go to the lower level and I translate the information in the music theory by myself, not by the other developer or other designer. So maybe this is an example of how can you translate that information to computer, as well as a preparation for a show, maybe.
So I think we can move on with the next question, which I think, what do you think about human enhancement, whether cognitive or physical? How would you include the musical dimension in this phenomenon? Who wants to respond?
I can go.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Uğurcan. I'm very skeptical about human enhancement. Aren't we all? Shouldn't we all? Like, there are people who get vaccinated and they're different than us already. I haven't done my vaccination yet. So there are also ethical and physical, philosophical questions behind human enhancements. That's why I go skeptical. But I'm not conservative at all, but I'm very romantic. That is to say, there are all these what if questions, like people have 10 fingers, but if they had 12, could they perform better in piano? Would you be interested in implanting another finger on your hand to perform better? So those ideas always come into the discussion. And I'm surely very skeptical about these situations, because I like the tendency between the limitations of a human and the abilities that they can reach. And because that also guarantees us a space where our imagination can reside in. We're not able to fly, but we can make movies where people can fly. So there's a there has to be a limitation towards the human enhancement. So many dimensions, as I said, are coming into action, like the ethics and at all. So yeah.
Kerem, you go. Yeah.
Go
I just want to add something about the cognition enhancement side. So in neuroscience, normally when they're working on something about cognition, they're working on the attention of sound stimuli, or about listening to and realizing about what they're realizing about music. They don't go enhancing the humans. Instead, they are just focusing on what we can do already, and we are just realizing by enhancing what we can do already in cognitive science. Actually, right now there are many phenomena that you can understand if person is focusing on some sounds and trying to disregard the other sounds. You can use this data to make music, but this doesn't make you fly, as Selçuk mentioned. Like this won't make you fly. You fly by making your music, composing your music inside your head, and try to implement it the best way you can.
Go on, Kira. You wanted to add something.
Yeah, I want to mention also the hearing capabilities maybe can go into this category, that enhancement. So as we humans, as you know, approximately we have a range of 20 hertz and to 20,000 hertz, and this is actually a important aspect of sound, because, for example, out there, sound is a vibration, as we know, vibration on the molecules, and we sense those molecules movement and turn it into the thoughts of us or feelings of us or anything else. I don't know. For example, an earthquake is also a vibration, or a bat sonar is also a vibration, but they are not in our hearing range. So it's actually like in between a philosophical statement and in between like neuroscience, not neuroscience, but biological question. Maybe if we can improve our range somehow, I don't know, that would be an enhancement, and that would create something new for our thoughts and feelings.
Okay, thank you. The final question is notating live coding performances is notating open quotes live coding performances / ideas quote closing quote is against its nature. The aim here is reaching precise performances or sharing a particular work performance. I think we should define what is the context here about notating, because notating has a traditional meaning of creating instructions for an instrument player how to perform specific notes. So I think it's a little bit dangerous by kind of linking this traditional idea of notation to live coding. So as I said, I don't think there is any way, because it's an improvisation technique par excellence, which means it will never be able to, even though you're using a very precise language, music language, to describe to the computer to recreate the music. There are some things that you can easily change, and actually this is what people are doing. Sometimes they don't want to invent the wheel from the beginning, so they kind of manipulating the code that they have in front of them from a previous performance that was interesting. Or once I was in a beginning of live coding in the United Kingdom, where an artist named Nick Collins, he, instead of starting from scratch like a blank slate, he started by having a huge piece of code in front of him, and that of course expands to a huge kind of texture, musical texture. So it was like so noisy, and his performance was how to kind of create a more elliptical situation for that, meaning suspending pieces of the code that were already introduced from the beginning. So his performance kind of gradually builded off, not builded on, of the textual and musical events. So that's something I can relate to that.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
I think this is a marvelous question, because this is a dilemma that we have been feeling and facing for a while. Because what's the usual sense of like music production? You compose and you record and release, and then it's distributed towards the listeners. But how would we apply the same situation to the live coding scenarios? It's hard, because what you're doing is a live thing. But we can also relate this question to even to the classical pieces, even though they have been notated to the finest details. Can we exactly say like 100% pure? They are as if they have been written and notated. It's not possible, because we are listening the same symphonies from different orchestras and different in different venues and conducted by different people. So this is the nice thing about performance. It cannot be recorded, even though we as humans established a sense of a memory device, a Memorex that is recording things audially. The experience is not recorded. It's a mere reflection of what's going on. So same, it will be applying to the live performances. But we as, I know a few more of you are releasing songs. It's just a way of like trying to touch towards the people, but I would never prefer to have a life where I only release songs but never perform live. Recording and releasing follows our live performances indeed.
Is anyone else that wants to add something to this? No. For the there's a final, I think it's a more like a remark, but anyways, I'll read it. It's maybe in time you can extend live coding to coding of listeners' neurons.
A nice idea. Yeah, with many EEG devices, maybe we can. Yeah, if we can teach how the participants are going to sit without moving, without blinking too much. Yeah, we can directly try to sonify at least their neurons.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little bit like saying, don't move. You just listen, and then we'll make music of your brainwaves.
Yes, Kerem.
And you know, with the last question, it's actually a good remark, because when we are dealing with something in this kind of realm or medium, there is no limits actually what can you do and what you can imagine, because it's, you know, the computers are used for like 70 years, have been using people to compose something with computers. But you know, the recent developments on computer technology and the speed, also the computational power, as well as the interfaces that you can manipulate the computer, improves. You know, the limit is sky, and it is open right now for people. That's my, you know, that's my kind of my motivation about coding and computers.
Okay. So we don't have any more questions, but I would like to kind of wrap it up and hand some kind of outro, since we are musicians here. So I would like to actually have my own question, if you don't mind. And first is that first I want to say that it's not only live coding is not only you don't live code only by using computers. There are other examples where you can use other medium and environments and digital media like embedded computing with like Raspberry Pi, etc. There is something called Sonic Pi, which you can you don't have to use a computer, but you can connect this the Raspberry Pi, which is a mini computer, to where you're performing if they have a screen or a projector. There's another example by another Greek, which I'm terribly sorry, I don't remember his name, and sadly, but he had this kind of 0101 block wooden implementation, a metaphor of live coding where you could create with a kind of a hardware interface. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name. Yorgos Diapoulis, but in any case, you can drop me an email later if you want the paper to read about hardware coding. And so the question for you guys today, from me, is that how this experience of isolation has had an impact on the way that you are coding when you're coding for an online event, assuming we all do online events lately. So how this isolation, and how did it change the way you code or the way you are kind of performing? I would like to start from Selçuk for that question.
Yeah, we performed once for an online event. I'm guessing you are asking this question relating to this COVID lockdown situation, right?
I mean, isolated remote events, like did it change the way you perform?
Well, in the past, I remember we were performing in Helsinki in Finland, and there was a musician, Alo, you might know him.
Yeah.
When he was performing, there was a singer in US singing from her bathroom through the internet. And that was an amazing experience to see, because you were not only looking at a screen, but sharing this experience of someone broadcasting from a long distance towards you with a bunch of more people. But today, as I said, we performed once for an online event. I must admit, I hate it because I mean the event finishes, and as I said, the cosmic relation is lost. No eye contact, nothing of these gestures you can observe from the audience, and it's a bit like you are doing your job and you're done. When the concert is done, there is no backstaging, nothing. I mean, I might sound too romantic, but under the circumstances, it's inevitable. But then we have decided to stop for a while, because it's against the idea of being live and feeling the vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that will be my answer.
That's really nice answer, because I studied with someone, of course, but he wrote a paper, Back to the Parlour, about electronic music being kind of back to the parlour. It was the title of the paper. And parlour is when in the very old times, especially in Europe, people used to sit on a table after dinner, and because there was no television, of course, internet or radio, they would just sing. And I guess that relates to all the other cultures, not just the West. But the back to the parlour idea is that people used to do that. And so this feeling of coming together is what is missing right now, I think, with this. Because once you shut down your computer or you log off from the event, then you return back to the coldness of your apartment or something. Although, in the normal life, you would just share what the people felt, or how can you make better or worse, maybe, I don't know. You could get feedback, which I guess you can still get feedback, but not in the moment of, being there, I think.
Yeah, after a while, everything has become to be an information, because you can only connect to the world through your computer or through your mobile devices. So when you close it, you don't have any information about anything. So the remote performances actually is really related to what I have mentioned before, the network live coding. So the remote performances would be possible over internet with we already are working on something like this with Konstantinos. So we are trying to do a remote performance over the internet. And frankly, I don't see this as a different thing for being in the same room and doing live coding. Of course, there are some differences, but the feeling of trying to come up with something new, trying to improvise over somebody else's music with your code is still the same. But the sad thing, you are just in your room, and when you close everything, yeah, you are still in your room.
Yeah, and I think if any performance paradigm is suitable for online events, then I think that's live coding, because you can just share your screen and you don't have to go in acoustically treated stage because your instrument to be heard as it should be heard, or and directly you can share what you're doing in which is the main ethos of live coding. But still, I think we're kind of rightfully resisting that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I didn't think as a performer, but as a listener, I attended some, virtual reality some kind of servers uses both computer screens and as well as virtual reality glasses. And for example, this is, this kind of struggle somehow opens up new possibilities. Or for example, I attended one as well. They made a live concert. They were in same room, but they made a concert in Minecraft. Minecraft is a game designed for this designing game. They designed their own world in there, and they made a concert in there. For example, besides the bad parts, also there is a this struggle comes up with some kind of new ideas as well.
Yeah,
but I don't like it as well to be stuck in home. But
I think on a first glance, it looks more democratic to be able to perform from anywhere you are. But then you don't get this feedback from the demos, which is the democracy bottom line, where you get the feedback from the people who just experienced you or your ideas or what you do. So there's kind of a trade-off between performing from everywhere, which is very flexible and accessible for artists who might not be able to travel. But at the same time, I think we are kind of the performer themselves, they feel some kind of dislocation between the live situation and which is kind of imperative feeling for when you're live coding, especially because from the reaction of the people, you getting of they like it, they don't like it, or they hate it, or maybe I should change it, or maybe not change it. I think that's quite important, this interaction, which is missing right now. I think we have another one question came out just now. So I'll read it, and I think then we can leave other people to go rest, because I think they had a long day. So maybe you have mentioned this already and I have missed it, but did you ever use the audience's movements or reactions in some sense in a live coding performance? Does live coding provide an opportunity to create an active dialogue with the audience? I think I just gave my response about this kind of democratic interaction. Anyone?
And so, I mean, the person who have asked the question might have missed the beginning of the session. I think other people also can give it a shout. So I think this session is recorded and it will be broadcasted lately. Also, another double reminder we should also tell is that you can find all the presentation slides, not only the presentation slides, but also accompanying with some links to documentaries, to some sources, resources. And so we would like to welcome you all to be part of our community.
Yes. And okay, I guess that's it then, unless you want to maybe I don't know if Melly Farrell is here, maybe he wants to kind of give an outro, or Aslı.
I would like to invite Mr. Fereli and Matthias, our artistic director, to screen for the closing speeches, I guess.
Thank you very much, by the way. I think we are all grateful for giving us the time to speak about our weird music to the people.
Not weird at all. I find it very exciting. I'm very enthusiastic despite my age. But I can only say that have no fears, keep up your spirits high, and we'll soon, hopefully post-COVID, gather you with all your weirdnesses within our tag, and we'll celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matthias?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for this presentation. This was wonderful, and I really learned a lot because I'm a tech and computer amateur, and it was really very instructive. But I felt reminded to the very early pioneering days. For example, Alvin Lucy's piece from 1965, Music for Solo Performer, using his own brainwaves, playing on a magical way percussion instruments. And then I felt reminded on a concert we did in 2000 when I was working at the ZKM in Karlsruhe, Center of Arts and Media in Karlsruhe. So they had a very sophisticated wiring, glass fiber wiring in the building. So all the rooms in the building have been connected, and we set up a concert, which is in German called Wandelkonzert, a concert for an audience to walk around. And we had 5 artists, live electronic artists, playing, their room as the concerts, but they were all interconnected. And they got the music, the sound material of all the others fed into their computers, and they could play and interact with this material. And we as an audience, we would walk around, and we had like 5 solo concerts. They could choose if they would use the material or not. But then we had a 6th concert where they all played together. And this is like the early days, also the early internet concerts done by the Hub, this American trio. And yeah, and meanwhile, we have much more sophisticated and easier to handle digital devices, how to do it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what happens for the future. Thank you so much for giving us a very, very interesting and lively presentation on that matters. Thank you.
Just for you to speculate on something, Matthias, what do you think David Tudor would have done if he were alive today with live coding?
This is the typical question, what if? But what he could do already in the early times using analog electronic circuits, he was a magician of how to do it. There's these wonderful recordings of neuronal, I think it's called neuronal synthesis. And if you listen to these recordings, it's a magical musical event. And it still transmits to us nowadays. But I can't tell you whether he would have stopped or whether he would go to the advanced technology tools. I don't know. We don't have him anymore, which is a pity.
Well, we'll soon be springing a big surprise to everybody, I think, regarding David Tudor. So we'll just watch this space. I'll be the bearer of good news.
Let's see each other live again next year. That's
yes,
very important. And you emphasized it too. This is missing, the direct social contact. We all need this awfully urgently.
I think I would implore all of you to make sure that you include Altair as part of your community amongst yourselves. We would welcome you to accept us as an indispensable part of your association.